Greetings and welcome to our spooky lessons with Odin. Last episode, I showed you what I did with these dome thingies and put a little tiny scene inside of them. Now we're going to take it to the next step and make a chain for our dome thingy. Now this is just a small variation on the cubic right angle weave with some dangly, sticky, outy parts. So it's a pretty simple, easygoing chain, and you can kind of customize it to look however you like. For this project, you will need size 11 seed beads, size 15 seed beads, and a shit ton of other beads. Now this is what I've done in each segment. I started off with a 4 seed, which is something I will talk about in a little bit. But I've got a section of seed beads, 2mm, 3mm, and then I transitioned a 4mm with some Demi round seed beads, and then moved back down to 3mm, 2mm seed bead. This is kind of what I recommend to step into, but in terms of the shapes of the beads, you can use pretty much whatever you want. I've alternated a pattern of 4 pearls, and then these helix beads, which I had in my stash forever, and I didn't know what to do with, and I figured out what to do with them. So I think these add a nice little bit of dimension to them. You can go larger, you can go smaller, as long as you're able to transition between these beads nicely and smoothly. But yes, in terms of actual numbers, I have 8 of these sections on each side, 2 sections of 16. I've used 4 color variations and shapes. I've used pearls in purple, helix in green, pearl in green, helix in purple, and then I repeated that once more to make 8 segments, and did that on the other side as well. In the end, I started to decrease towards the clasp, so I used a seed bead, 2mm seed bead, then a 4 seed, and then you'll need extra bits and bobs for the ends, like I have 2 3mm pearls at the clasp, as well as at the centerpiece here, as well as 2 3mm bicones in the centerpiece as well. If that's all confusing and you don't want to do the math, I'll probably have the math done in the description box below, so check that out. So as I mentioned, you will need 4 seed beads. You don't need 4 seed beads, but I highly recommend it because it just adds a nice little closure and transition to the rest of the piece. You can just use another set of beads, like delicas or something, if you want to be different. What I like about this shape is that it's kind of like CRAW, I don't know how do you pronounce the cubic right angle weave acronym? Comment down below how you pronounce it. I'm gonna call it CRAW, just because I feel like being extra. Anyway, this is like CRAW on training wheels, because if you take a look, this bead has 4 holes in it. And if you take a look at the horizontal beads in each section, it's pretty much like a 4 seed with those 4 beads. So you just kind of replace this section with a 4 seed, and that's how it works. So, if you kind of have some troubles with the CRAW, this might help you out a little bit. So, these I got from back2bead.com. I highly recommend you check them out because they have some fantastic selections as well. I will probably leave links down below. Like I mentioned before, 2mm, true 2mm fire polish is nice for starting your transition. An assortment of 3mm beads. An assortment of 4mm beads. I used Demi rounds to transition the 4mm beads better and make it a little smoother in the right angle weave. Your dangly parts. I use 4 dagger beads and 8 baby spikes. 5 by 8mm spikes. You can use other things, since this one is Halloween themed. If you had like some nice charms, Halloween themed charms that look kind of cool dangling around, you could use regular teardrops and briolets. Anything, really, or nothing at all. You can totally just skip that step. So yes. You will also need some sort of clasp receptacle device that hooks it together so you can wear it. And of course, your needle and thread. I am using a heavyweight Nymo. However, once you get to the transition down here, this little piece is very heavy. So I'd recommend using a stronger thread like a Fireline or something to reinforce that nicely and make sure it doesn't wear and tear after prolonged use. I also got away with a size 12 needle, but you might want a size 13, especially when you get into these tougher spaces here. Let us get started! Alright, so we're going to start off our chain by using the 4-seed, and I'm basically going to be working with 2 holes at a time in order to start our stitch. So I'm going to take a new thread, pass through 1 hole of the 4-seed. I'm going to add 1 size 11 seed bead and pass through the hole next over. I'm going to pull my thread down. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail because I want something to work with. I'm starting off at the center of our chain, so this is where we're going to connect and attach our little dome piece later. So from here, I'm going to add 1 more size 11 seed bead and pass up through the hole that we started from. Pull tight, and we have 2 seed beads wedged in between the 2 holes of the 4-seed. I'm just gonna reinforce this and join it together. So I'm gonna pass through seed bead again, go down the hole of the 4-seed, then pass through the next seed bead so that we meet the tail end of our thread, and I'm just going to tie an overhand knot just to secure that in place. From there, I'm going to move my thread up through the 4-seed, then I'm going to rotate my 4-seed 90 degrees so that I have a blank space here that I can fill out with new seed beads. So I'm going to add 1 seed bead and pass down through the next hole over, add 1 more seed bead, pass up through the hole that we started from, and you might have to work through the knot to do that, but that's totally okay. So pass up like that. Now we need to start positioning ourselves so that we get to the next side. So from here, I'm going to go through the seed bead at the top, then move down the 4-seed. Gonna rotate so that we have a blank space again. I'm going to add 1 seed bead, move up through the next hole in the 4-seed, add 1 more seed bead, move down the hole that we started from. Now we need to move over again, so I'm going to pass through the bottom seed bead and move up through the 4-seed. Then I'm going to rotate around because I have 1 space left to add my 4th seed bead on top and bottom. So I'm going to add 1 seed bead, move down the next hole of the 4-seed, add on 1 more seed bead, and move up the hole of the seed bead that we 4-seed that we started at. And that is the start of our cubic right angle weave. You see we have 4 beads at the top and the bottom. So to set up for my next stitch, I'm just going to pass to the left of a seed bead on top. And from here, we can just continue our regular cubic right angle weave. So to start my pattern, I'm going to do a section of all seed beads. So for those of you who have never done cubic right angle weave before, it's basically a square cube giant cube going up. So in order to progress the stitch, we are basically building 4 walls with each of these beads, and then moving up. Your first wall is going to have 3 beads. So in this case, I have added 3 seed beads, and then I'm going to pass back through the first bead that we started on. We will form a new picot of 4 beads right on top of it. Then I'm going to move up the bead here to the left so that I set up for my next stitch. Then I'm going to rotate it around, and you'll see we have 2 of a 4 set of beads to work with. We need to fill in the next 2 beads. So I'm adding 2 seed beads, and then I'm passing down through the bottom hole of the bottom seed bead here. And that we have finished another set of 4. I'm going to move around because I want to end up here. So I'm just going to go up 1, over 1, down the side, and then finally over on our new side. And once again, we have 2 of our 4 beads already established here. So I'm going to add 2 beads, go down this side bead here, and now we have our new set of 4. Now I want to move up over to this bead here, so I'm going to go down 1 and up 1. I'm going to rotate around, and this is our last wall. And you'll notice we have 3 of the 4 beads here. We just need to fill in the last one. So I'm going to add 1 seed bead, move over to the opposite side, and go down that bead there, so we complete our pattern of 4. Now I want to move around and up so that I can make a new stitch. So all I'm going to do is go over, up, and then over. So in our 4 walls, you're basically going to do the same thing. You're going to add 3 beads for your first wall, 2 beads for your second and third wall, and then 1 bead for your final wall. Things start getting a little bit different. And I know I said I was using true 2mm for my bead, but I decided to use delicas in this part because I don't have any orangey copper true 2mm. So, this stitch is really, really simple and really versatile, so you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. So this is the pattern that I'm going to start off with. We're starting our first stitch, so we need to add 3 beads. So I'm going to add 1 delica, 1 size 11 seed bead, and 1 delica. These 2 delicas are going to be on the sides here. So the variation for our stitch, these 2 beads are going to be replaced with a new shape of bead as we go up. So I'm going to rotate around and basically do the same thing. And that is our first wall. Now what's kind of strange to me, because I'm using delicas, these tend to not sit nice and properly. You see how this is a very nice circle, very even circle of 4. Whenever I use delicas, it tends to not do that. And I'm not quite sure why, because delicas are really nice, uniformly cut, so you'd think they'd be more structurally sound, but they aren't. So if it looks weird, don't worry about it. Now we're going to move on to our next wall, so I'm going to move up the delica bead. And now we only need to build 2, but this is where we're going to end up with. I'm coming up through the delica, we're going to go over and around, so I need to start with a size 11 seed bead and then a delica. So I've added it in that order. Then I'm going to move through the top bead from the previous row. And now we have our new section of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to move over, so I'm going to go up a delica, around our size 11, at the top, down the second delica, and then over the top bead from our previous row. Now, from here, we're going away and around and down, so I need to add a delica bead first, then a size 11 seed bead. So I've added my beads in that order. I'm going to go down the delica bead, and we will have completed our third wall. I need to move over to this delica here, so I'm just going to pass through the seed bead, and then up through the delica bead. So now we have 3 of our 4 beads after I've rotated around. We have 2 delicas and a size 11 seed bead. All we need is 1 more seed bead. I'm going to jump across and pass down through the next delica, and we would have completed our circle. Now I need to move up to the top bead of our set so that I can make a new row. So I'm just going to pass through seed bead, up through a delica, and to the left of the seed bead at the top. Now when you get to this point and you're getting to a new row, it doesn't quite matter if you go left or right. However, if you choose to go right instead of left, the order of the beads will just change and they will reverse. So just keep in mind, if you add a new thread or if you get lost and you accidentally go to the right, not a problem. Just pay attention to the order of the beads and the way you position things in your adding. But we're going to stick to the left just because. And that's basically it. So I'm going to show you real quick how to do it because the next stage we're going to use 3mm beads. So here we're going to use our 3mm beads as our walls this time. So to add 3 beads, I'm going to add one 3mm, one size 11 seed bead, one 3mm. We're going to pass through the size 11 seed bead that we're starting from. And we start our wall here. So I'm going to move up a 3mm bead. I'm starting out from the top of this wall. So I'm going to add one seed bead, one 3mm, pass through the size 11 seed bead that is at the top of the previous row, like that. I'm going to move over to the other side, up, over, down, and over to our new stitch. Then add one 3mm, then size 11, pass down through the 3mm here. Move over and up. Add one size 11, pass down, jump across and pass down through the 3mm, then move back up, and you'll have your next stitch done. The 4mm is what we're going to do next, but it's only slightly different. So this is what I've got started on for my first wall of beads. I have a demi round, a 4mm, a demi round, a size 11, and then a demi round, 4mm, demi round. This set of one demi round, one 4mm, one demi round is going to act as one side of our wall. So as we do the stitch, we're going to pretend that these 3 beads are actually one bead. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to pass back through to attach our wall, and the demi rounds are there to smooth the transition out between the 4mm and the 11. If you added just the 4mm beads, you're going to have a really huge gap in between, a huge thread gap in between the size 11 and the 4mm, and they won't sit in properly, so that's why I've added the demi rounds there. Now normally when we do this, we would go through just one bead. We would just go through a 3mm bead. But this time I'm going to go up through a demi round, a 4mm, and a demi round. I'm going to pretend this entire set of beads is one bead. I go down there, and I'm ready to set up my next stitch. So from the top, I'm going to add one size 11 seed bead, one demi round, one 4mm, one demi round, like so. Then I'm going to pass back through the top size 11 seed bead from the previous row. Gonna pull tight, and then we have our next wall built. In order to rotate around, I'm going to go all the way around and over. So through the demi round, the 4mm, the demi round, the size 11 seed bead, the demi round, 4mm demi round, and finally through the size 11 seed bead that is from the previous row. Then I'll add the demi round set and a seed bead. I'm going to pass back through a demi round, a 4mm, and a demi round in order to anchor the last wall. Then I need to move all the way around and through the top. So from here, I'm going to go through the seed bead, the first 4mm set, over a seed bead, down a 4mm set, over a seed bead, and finally up a 4mm set. Anchor it with one seed bead, so all the way down like that. Then move all the way up to the top. And that is your completed set of 4mm seed beads. Now from here, you're just going to reduce and go backwards in the beads that you've added. So next row is going to be a 3mm, a delica, or 2mm, depending on what you used, then one seed bead row, and then you will go and add another 4-seed set. So here's my first segment, and I'm ready to attach another 4-seed. It's pretty much the same thing as we've done over here, except we already have 4 beads at the bottom that we're going to work with. We only need to attach a section on top. So from here, my thread is coming out of the left side of the bead. I'm going to hold my 4-seed so it kind of matches the holes around. And I'm going to pass through a left corner of the bead. I'm going to add one seed bead, pass down the right corner, cinch that down, and then I'm going to pass through the right side of the bead that we started at. Once I pull tight, I have one side of my 4-seed anchored on there. I'm going to move back up to the left corner, then rotate around so that I can attach a new seed bead. So I've got one seed bead down here. I'm going to go down the left corner. Then I'm going to pass through the left side of the seed bead right underneath. Then pass up through the right side of the seed, 4 seed, to move over. So go through the seed bead, go down the left side, then I'm going to move over through a seed bead at the bottom, move up through the left side of the 4 seed, add on 1 seed bead, move down through the right corner of the 4 seed, then set up for my next and last stitch. I'm going to move over the seed bead, up the left corner, rotate to my final side, add on 1 seed bead, move down the left corner, move through the seed bead to anchor that in place, move up the right corner of the 4 seed, and finally through the top seed bead. If we look, we now have our base 4 seeds so that we can start our new stitch. From here, you're going to add your size 11, your delicas or 2mm, your 3mm, your 4mm set, and then reduce. You're going to continue that until you have the chain length you want. What I did for about a 21-ish, 22-inch necklace, I added 8 of these segments, and then, just because I got tired of doing it, I altered my pattern at the end, so this is my last segment of 4mm beads. I added a 4 seed, I have a size 11 seed bead, a 2mm size 11, then I added a 4 seed, size 11, 2mm, 4 seed, and then I added my clasp section. So make this piece as long as you would like, and then you're going to make 2 halves, because what we're going to do is we're going to join the center together at the opposite side. So go ahead and make 2 of these segments. Okay, so when you have both your strands done, you're going to want all of your ends to look like this. We end up at the 4 seed with 4 seed beads on top. That's what we want all 4 ends of our straps to look like. So from here, we're going to start cinching it together so that we can attach our clasp and also anchor our centerpiece onto our necklace. So I'm going to start off coming out of one of the seed beads at the top. I'm going to add on my thread 2 size 15 seed beads, 1 3mm, 2 size 15 seed beads. Then I'm going to pass back through that seed bead. Then I'm going to reinforce with passing through those other beads, and I want to end up through the 3mm bead when I'm done. Once I'm through that bead, I'm going to add 2 more size 15 seed beads. Then I'm going to jump across to the size 11 bead opposite where I'm starting from. So I will go this way. We will anchor that down. I'm going to add 2 more seed beads, pass through the 3mm again, then reinforce that side and end up through the 3mm bead. Then we will have 2 sides anchoring this 3mm bead in the center. Then I'm going to add 2 size 15s, 2 size 11s, 2 size 15s, and starting from the 3mm bead, I'm going to pass back through that 3mm bead so that I have wrapped the 3mm bead. Going to reinforce that once more, and then you want to end up through the center size 11 seed beads. Now at this point, you're going to want to repeat on all 4 ends of your piece so that you have a covering on top of the 3mm bead. So that you are at this point at all 4 ends, both the clasp end and the start end on both straps. This is the clasp end of my piece, so I'm going to attach my clasp simply by threading on one size 11, half of my clasp, and another size 11, then passing back through those 2 size 11 seed beads in the center of our strap above the 3mm bead here. Like so. Then we're going to reinforce this once or twice and then end this thread here. You'll repeat that for the clasp end of the other strap as well. Okay, to attach the 2 centerpieces together, you're going to want to end up through the middle in between the 2 size 11 seed beads on top of your 3mm bead. Also, before starting this, you might want to start a new thread and a stronger thread, since this is what's going to carry the large weight of the focal pendant. So I've got my thread through here. I'm going to thread on a 3mm, my focal piece, and a 3mm. Pass that down, and then take my other strap and pass through in between the 2 size 11 seed beads on the other strap. So when we pull it down, this is kind of what we end up with. I'm going to pass through the 3mm bead, pull tight, back up through the 2 size 15s and the other size 11 that is in the center, not connected to the 3mm yet. Then I'll pass through the 3mm, the focal, and the 3mm, then pass through the size 11 in the center and the 2 size 15s that are not connected to the 3mm here. And that is our completed connection. What we're going to do then is weave a figure 8 back around so that we reinforce these beads. You might need to switch to a smaller needle if you're getting too tight in here. And this is also where you would want a stronger thread. There you have it. So you can leave the chain as is, or you can make it a little bit extra by adding some dangly parts. So you can either use the extra thread from the center or attach a new thread, and I'm going to travel all the way down until I have reached the 4mm bead here. Then I'm going to add 3 size 15 seed beads, a dagger bead, 3 size 15 seed beads, then pass back through that same 4mm bead, so I form a loop. Then I'm going to reinforce that by passing through once more, and then I'm going to end up coming out of the dagger bead. We're pretty much going to do the same steps that we did when we added the 3mm bead to the ends. So I'm going to add another 3 size 15 seed beads, then jump over and pass through the 4mm bead here, across the way. I'm going to add one more set of 3 size 15 seed beads, and pass through the dagger. Then I'm going to reinforce passing through once more, and then I want to end up through the 4mm bead again. Like that. Then I'm going to travel all the way down through the same face of my CRAW until I end up through the next 4mm set. So basically we're just going to do a little bit of weaving all the way down until we reach the same set. We wanted to make sure that we're on the same flat so that the dagger points in the same place all along the rope. Now it doesn't matter so much on the opposite side across from our focal point, because this right in the center is a twisty pivot point here. So we can always, when we're wearing it, adjust it so that the daggers sit flat. What is important is only here on each side, to make sure that we have the same pointed direction. Now for this piece, I'm going to add 2 daggers, and then I'm going to switch to my baby spikes after that. So I'm going to add dagger, dagger, spike, spike, and spike. So I'm only adding 3 for this one. You can add as many or as few as you like. And when I'm attaching my spike, I'm going to add 4 size 15 seed beads instead of 3 like we did with the dagger. So repeat that to attach your daggers on all of the sets that you want. And then after that you will have your finished rope on your fancy focal piece. Now join us next week where we learn how to make this spooky jellyfish type thing. Kind of. It kind of looks like a Victorian cage. But we're going to take it another step further to complete this spooky route. It looks really cool, and it's really fun to wear and play with. So, join me next week for that. And I think that will do it for me. Be sure you are joined on our Facebook group at Creations from Lessons with Odin, because I would love to see what you guys have created, and I want to see what you guys do with this. Also, as per request, since a lot of people weren't interested in messing with polymer clay, I have these domes, both the broomstick and cauldron and the spooky gravestone, in my shop. So if you guys don't want to bother with polymer clay and you wanted a miniature little dome world for yourself, check out the link down below. And if you would like a little miniature spooky world of your own, feel free to take a look at what I have. Now, it's probably not gonna come in before Halloween. I'm just gonna put that out there. But if you're like me and you celebrate Halloween all year round, I think it would be a cute little addition in your collection. So all pertinent links will be down below. Also be sure, I believe I'm having a live stream coming up on Halloween night where I'm playing a little spooky game, and it would be cool if you were to join me there. Links for that will also be down below. So, that's about it. Be sure to like up this video and subscribe if you want to see more spooky bullshit from me. Check out my sci-fi book that is progressing. Links to that are down below as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and of course, if there's anything I need to be trying out right now, feel free to let me know down below. And I will see you next time.